What's up, y'all? So I'm a lefty who used to be very excited about the squad, and I will admit, even cheerleaded them a little bit because it was exciting, man. I mean, they promised so much. They talked a big talk, and then did not back it up at all. So I would say probably early 2020 was when I lost my faith in them. Um, and the reason for that really came down to because that's when we had the opportunity to force the vote on Medicare for all, something that Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ran on. And so for those who aren't familiar, they were trying to pass the CARES Act, right? They had to get it through because they had to do some kind of relief package. There was no way they weren't going to pass something. So Jimmy Dore, I think it was his idea originally, was basically like, hey, let's take this opportunity to say, because they were also voting to reinstate Pelosi as speaker. That's the other important detail I forgot. So pretty much the idea was, let's take this opportunity to say, hey, if you don't put Medicare for all up for a floor vote, then we're not going to vote for Pelosi again to be speaker. So they're basically holding her seat hostage to get what they wanted. That's like very standard bargaining, political bargaining. And there was no reason why they couldn't have done that to force a floor vote on Medicare for all. And yeah, it would have failed. It wouldn't have passed. We wouldn't have had, it's not like we'd have Medicare for all right now, but it would be amazing to have to see people vote against Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. Just imagine that. Like having all those people on record, everyone who voted against it would be huge because then we could vote those people out, right? Plus, fighting for it now just brings up, it just pretty much puts it into the public purview more. This whole conversation about Medicare for all, becomes more relevant to everything. And additionally, Pelosi is not something she's going to just do on her own. We have to force all of these corporate Democrats who have been in Congress for 40 years to do the things we want them to do, right? This is very standard, like how politics works, especially if you're like on the far left and you're trying to push this centrist left party, which is really like a centrist moderate right party towards what the public wants. So this is something AOC totally understood and literally said in interviews, yeah, I'm gonna force stuff, and I'm gonna withhold votes and do whatever I have to do. And she said at one point too, like, I don't care if I'm a one-term congressperson, like change is more important than anything. And I just remember her saying that, and I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what we need. This is exactly the kind of political movement we need. It felt like we had really good momentum because AOC kind of came out of this whole Bernie movement. And I was like, we're really going to get change in Congress. And then they just abandoned all of it. And the time came and went, and they constantly were just gaslighting people on social media and trying to convince everyone somehow now is not the time to fight. Somehow this is going to set us back. And seeing that was disgusting, man. Like seeing the squad straight up just lie to people and be like, oh, we can't fight right now. We're going to fight later. And then giving up later as well. Like a big reason why there was so many stupid reasons why they said we couldn't do force the vote for Medicare for all. All of them were illogical, but maybe the worst one was we can't do this now because we need our political, you know, chips for later so we can get $15 minimum wage. Well, guess what? They gave up on that too. They didn't fight for that either. So I'm like, at what point do you actually start fighting? So I'm it was hard for me at first. Like truly, I didn't want to believe that like the squad had abandoned all their followers. Um but eventually I came to terms with it and saw through their BS and realized we can't idolize politicians like they're celebrities, and that's a big thing that I had to come to terms with is like, you can't, these are people that you chose to lead you, and now it's their responsibility to do the thing that they ran on, right? And it's your responsibility as the constituent to constantly vocalize that and put pressure on them and not, roll over. And it's amazing to me how many people still defend the squad. I don't understand how you could possibly at this point. What have they gotten for you? They haven't gotten anything. And that, like, literally, you can't point to anything they've fought for and successfully gotten. There was some, I don't remember what outlet posted this, but it was like, it was just a measure of like who the most and least effective Congress people are, and I think AOC was ranked like the bottom of that list, like least effective Congressperson, which kind of makes sense because you look at it, like all of the things she says she's fighting for and the progress that's been achieved in those areas is like zero. Like she literally hasn't gotten a single step forward. So the squad and the progressive caucus, who really aren't a progressive caucus because they refuse to vote as a block and do things like force the vote. So they're really just, they all vote independently. So I'm like, what the is the point of you being all super far left if you're never going to come together and use your leverage in any way? And all they do is pretty much sheepdog for the corporate Democrat, all the other corporate Democrats, right? They're pretty much just keeping the progressives in line and making sure that all of the people on the far left still kind of try to get them to fall in line with the Democratic consensus. They were trying to sheepdog everybody to vote for Biden. And so it's like, these people they're not fighting for your interests. They are fighting to uphold the corporate oligarchy, the corporate duopoly. And I think it's super stupid too when people are like, this really annoys me when people are like, oh, well, they can't do it because then they're not going to ever get anything done, and they won't be taken serious anymore, and they might even not get reelected, and it's like all of them, they're worried about the politician's career. And I'm like, why are you thinking about this person? We need healthcare right now. Like a third of the people who died from COVID was because they didn't have Medicare for all. And I think something like 65,000 people a year in the US die because they don't have health care. It's horrible. I mean, this is just, stop making excuses for these people like they're your friends. Like, they don't care about you, and they've proven that time and time again. And it doesn't, it's not like bringing me joy to say this. Like, this sucks. I really wish the squad would fight for us, but they don't. And you have to be honest about it as if you're a progressive. And they also kind of, that marked the turning point for me in terms of thinking that we could achieve liberation within the Democratic Party. I definitely kind of realized there that voting for progressives within the Democratic Party was a fool's errand, because they instantly just turned around and started serving the corporate Democrats. So that was really when I realized we did need a third party, and there was no way we were going to achieve any form of success within the Democratic Party. Again, please point to something the squad has fought for successfully. Like, I really want to know something other than like getting a third bathroom for people who are transgender. Yeah, it's important, but like, that pales in comparison to like all the stuff they ran on. Like, yeah, they might get you like a little culture wars like biscuit here and there, but for the most part, they're not gonna do anything substantive. They're not gonna do anything to fundamentally change the institutions that propagate systemic oppression that they love to talk about but don't do anything about. Their whole Twitter is just platitudes and word salad and just all of this meaningless bogus that their followers just eat up. And that was part of the reason I left social media too, because I was just tired of seeing all the partisan cheerleading, and just tired of seeing all the squad constantly gaslighting all their supporters. And yeah, so I agree that they are the fraud squad. And there's times here and there where they still say stuff where I'm like, hey, I'm glad you're saying that. But words are one thing, man. Actions are another. And it's great how much Ilhan Omar, I always think of how outspoken she is about Israel Palestine. I love that. I love how outspoken she is, how honest she is. She takes a lot of heat for that from Republicans and Democrats for telling the truth about Israel. And it's great, but then she doesn't actually do anything within her policies that are substantive. She votes for horrible things like the CARES Act, the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history. She votes for like the capital spending bill, which is just boosting security all around the Capitol after the January 6th insurrection. AOC, I think she voted not present on that, but all the rest of the squad like voted for it or something. Like none of them voted against it. None of them tried to fight that, even though it's just making the security state bigger. All of them too were like really worried about January 6th and like, oh, we need to have a 9/11 style commission. I'm like, first of all, do you really want that? Because the 9/11 commission was the most bogus. Like George Bush and Dick Cheney went into questioning, but with no cameras and not under oath. Like that was the commission. So do we really want to repeat that? Probably not. Also, why the hell are we equating January 6th and 9/11? Like, Jesus Christ, people. 2 people, I think, died on January 6th. And everybody wants to talk about it like it's this groundbreaking crisis that just changed the face of American politics. And like they're doing I think they're doing an exhibit on January 6th at the Smithsonian, and there's like I was watching Crystal and Sagar's show, and they're talking about how there's some janitor who's, or maybe it was a janitor, it was a congressperson. I don't actually know. That detail was lost on me, but it was some guy who became famous after January 6th for like cleaning up all the garbage from it. And they're gonna take the jacket that he was wearing and put it in the Smithsonian Museum, and the whole thing is like, people are gonna look at this jacket one day and they're gonna look back on January 6th and they're gonna remember what we went through and da 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 da. It's like making it into this big historical event, and I'm like, bro, what the hell are you talking? So the squad was there for all that. They were just pushing that. Sorry, that was kind of a tangent about January 6th, but the squad is just feeding into this culture wars, this partisan cheerleading, nothing that's substantive, nothing that actually makes anybody's lives better. It's actually making your life worse because they're distracting you from all the stuff that you should care about and the stuff that you should be fighting for. If AOC and the squad were always telling the truth, first of all, I think they could get reelected. I don't understand why they all have convinced themselves that their career is dependent upon the corporate Democrats. But I'm like, yo, as long as you keep doing your thing and like fighting for people, you're going to get reelected. Like it doesn't matter if you have the support of, the corporate Dems or not. The people will love you. That's my opinion, at least. Obviously, then you don't have any backing when you run again, and the corporate Democrats will actively try and sabotage your races, which is what they did with AOC actually. But she still won in a landslide. So I don't know. I think that they have all the power in the world and they should just start fighting for the people tooth and nail. But they're not doing that. They've freaking, at this point, I mean, the ship has sailed. So that is pretty much why I lost my faith in the squad. And it's a bummer. But that's the truth, y'all. And yeah, again, just we gotta not do this whole partisan cheerleading thing. We gotta not treat politicians like they're celebrities. And yeah, so anyways, thanks for watching, and hope y'all have a good rest of your day.